public comment. Zoe Yakamini, come on up to the podium. While you do that, I'll give you some basic information about public comment. Public comment is an opportunity for the board to receive public statements on items not listed on the meeting agenda. If you have a point of view for a specific agenda item, I ask that you hold that until I request comments at that particular agenda item. Public comment is time is not intended to raise issues unique to a particular student or staff member or administrator. Rather, it's a time to provide your insights on issues more generally and of a wider concern. As a general rule, the board will not respond to public comment. I ask to begin your comments by clearly stating your name and school attendance area. Please limit your comments to 2 minutes. We will have a timer. The board neither endorses nor censors any opinions expressed during public input. Please keep all comments civil and respectful and avoid personal attacks on others. The audience should refrain from making comments or engaging in applause, but please feel free to wave your hands in support of a speaker. So Zoe, over to you.
Again, my name is Zoe Akini, and I'm from the Issaquah.
Is your microphone on?
Yeah.
Is the little light on in front of you?
I can. You want me to talk louder? I can project. Hello.
Okay, we'll try that.
Okay. Can I get my timer started, please?
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay. My name is Zoe Akini. I'm from Issaquah High School Theater Department. I'm here. So our last show that we did was Issaquah, our Putnam County 25th annual Putnam County Spelling Bee. I'm not sure if any of you guys went to that, but if you didn't, you still have one more opportunity to come and support Issaquah Theater. So our next show that we're doing is going to be our spring one act, which is called Working Title Play. And it opens next week, Wednesday, May 17th. It runs through Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday on 7 p.m. So I have some official invitations. The show is going to be next week, May 17th, 18th, 19th, and 20th, Wednesday through Friday. So something really cool about this show. Well, first, it's essentially about the trials and tribulations of trying to put on a high school theater department show, which may have been influenced a little bit by personal experience. But something really cool about this show is it is 100% student produced. So our director, her name is Mackenzie Wilmot Wade, who's come with me before to talk to you. She's directing it, and then our student writer for the show is Julia Nealon, and she's also a junior at Issaquah High School this year. So that's super cool. Something else that's kind of exciting, kind of sad. Our last group of seniors, or our last group of students who had the opportunity to take our in-person technical theater class are our seniors this year. So something kind of cool about this show is it gave them an opportunity to pass down the skills that they learned in that class. That if they didn't have the show, those kind of skills would have been lost when they graduated because COVID and our school decided to cancel that class. So that's something. So please come and see Issaquah students' hard work and dedication to our theater program. Working Title Play next week opens on Wednesday and runs through Saturday at 7 p.m. Hope to see you there.
Thank you. Is there anyone else in the room for public comment? Anyone on Zoom? Wonderful. No one on Zoom. Thank you. We appreciate your comment this evening. Next, we will move on to the approval of our consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
I move the consent agenda be approved as presented.
The consent.
Second.
Oh, thank you. Sorry. The consent agenda is a meeting management tool whereby the board is able to pass multiple items in one motion. Any board member may remove an item from the consent agenda and place it on the regular agenda for discussion. With that, all those in favor of our motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Okay, consent agenda passes. Thank you. Next, we have the establishment of our regular agenda. Superintendent, are there any changes to the regular agenda?
There are no changes.
Thank you. The first item that we have on our regular agenda is a review of our work study. The board had a work study discussion earlier this evening focused on EL12, our learning environment. This is an opportunity for the board to share any learnings or insights from that session. Who would like to get us started?
First off, I want to really thank all of the teachers who took time out of their evening to be there, because I think it's really important that the board get the feedback directly from the teachers about how things are working and what's working well and what isn't. And also our student rep, Mia, had some very good insights. And I appreciated how the work was framed this time in terms of we had really good guiding questions. And I mean, I have a whole list of bullet points of what can we do to move forward in our quest to get where we want to, where we're trying to go. It's a little bit frustrating to hear that, well, yes, we knew about this, but we thought it was sort of just a suggestion. And after however many years that it's been since we started with EL12, it's like, yeah, it's not really a suggestion. It's kind of where we want to be. So what can we do positively to get there? So a lot of good input, a lot of good ideas. And I really appreciated everybody's input.
Well, I think a takeaway is it's a really complex problem. And, but I think the good news was the teachers that were there, our student, we all agree it's good work to do and that it's a place to go that can be good for students, but it's a very complex problem with the inner workings of so many different staff members.
And I thought it was interesting, the conversation around how, you know, when you offer more opportunities for students to show mastery, that it actually makes the system more transactional and not less. And, you know, how do we get to the point of we're interested in students learning? Are they mastering the concepts that we need them to master? Are they mastering, are they the competencies? And so really having at least that conversation, but how do you have that conversation with 1,000 different teachers? And I think that that's going to be kind of the rub of where can we get, how do we start to move the dial towards, I'm interested in students wanting to learn and be lifelong learners, and that they're learning the concepts, and that these grades are not just the currency to use at the college of their choice, but a communication tool of how they're doing. And so I think it is interesting that the conversation around, but we live in a world of percentages down to the, you know, hundredths of a percentage point of how you do in order to get into that college, you know, an 89.75 versus a 90.23. And what does that really mean in the world of a student? Like, how do I know you're a B student in that case and not the A student when we're talking less than a point difference? So what does it really mean? And why are we, you know, what can we do to live in this world of percentage points, but expand further the work we want to do? And I just say, you break the whole system, but that's just me.
That's usually me, Director Moraldo. So I just want to follow up on that. You know, the teacher said that it's more transactional because of the lack of us defining what mastery is. And it was more transactional because there was a prevailing belief in some of our buildings that it was the board saying, no, every student should be able to keep doing redos until they get 100% or an A. And that's not what I've heard any of us say. So I think that there's work to be done when I looked at EL12 on both our top section about why we have EL12. So I think that's board work, as well as the superintendent work on defining what mastery is in the interpretation. And I think we heard very clearly over both sessions that we need to define it, whether that's 85% or whatever that number is, while we're uncomfortably in a percentage-based system. And then we need to be able to take hold and do the things that we actually have control over. By saying like an A is an A is an A, whatever that defined is. And if you want to shrink the number of, like, no one has said that we have to have A minus, B plus. And we heard that from our teachers and our students, that granularity may be driving some of this transactional nature. And so some of it is like, we have to look at what are we doing to contribute to that transactional nature. So it's both on just what our vision is for this, and then how do we pivot to doing that educational piece so our teachers aren't hearing the board wants them to just get every student a chance to get an A, because that's not at all what any of us has ever said or what we've not said and got left unspoken. So we do want and do believe that students deserve the opportunity to demonstrate mastery. And that's a really important thing which I shared earlier in the work study, because we want to make sure that the stress level of our students isn't being driven by a high stakes one chance to do it and perform. And we want students to know in real world, real life, that you can't be perfect the first time every time. And that's not our expectation.
Okay. So for me, I'm actually going to give it maybe my favorite work study in my 4 years on the board. I think it was a phenomenal conversation to really talk about what is a policy of the school board? How does that get rolled out into all of our buildings across all of our employees? How does it impact all of our students to have people sit around the table who are really dedicated teaching professionals talk about what they're wrestling with on what does that policy mean and how they should act on it, and really, you know, how people could come back to us sooner and say, we don't know what you meant. We don't know what you meant when you said that. So I think we have an opportunity to figure out how we get that sort of, you are not being clear in what your policy says for us to act on. How do we get that back more quickly? And so I think it's great to see, have our student rep as well, you know, a group of people really get together and say, how do we make this environment for our students more consistent, less stress-filled, focused on learning? And do we have work to get there? Yes, but it was super encouraging as a conversation. It just says we have to make sure we're having more two-way discussion as we try to move a whole system forward. Superintendent, anything you'd like to add?
It was just a great conversation that really highlights the role of policy and implementation. And so intent and impact is important here. And so it was very helpful, and it's very illuminating whenever you have those kinds of conversations, because a lot can get lost in between. So just thank you to the board for your engagement. Also, thank you to Andrew Zier, who led and facilitated and set us up for that conversation, and to the amazing students, teachers and principals and counselors who came to join for both work sessions across both EL12 conversations. So
Any other comments or thoughts before we move on? Okay, wonderful. With that, we will go on to our second agenda item, which is an update on our student board rep program. And it's a bit of excitement, maybe. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I move the board accept the student representatives to the board for the 2023-2024 school year as presented.
Second.
Okay, and I'll read them out in a minute, but I want to give a little preamble to this. We had 80 students apply for 7 positions on the board. So to say that it was impossible to choose 7 out of 80 is really an understatement. They were, we had the little blurbs that they filled out about why they wanted to do it, and their educational goals, and a couple of other questions. They were all outstanding. We had, Director Meraldo and I had the very difficult task of going into each school and selecting 4 to interview. Only Gibson Neck was easy because we had 4, but the other schools were hard. And then of those 4, we had to pick 1 from Liberty and 2 from the others. We did it. Hopefully we made good choices. Only time will tell. And I know that some of them are in the room. So maybe as I read the names, if they could stand, would that be reasonable? Because I see some of them. Okay, so first off, we have 2 students who were student reps this year who are returning so that they can help to mentor the new group. And we're really grateful for that. And that is Jack O'Connell and Mia Williamson, both from Liberty High School. I'm not sure they're here. And then the other thing that we did was we chose from each school, except for Liberty, 1 rising senior and 1 underclassman, so that come next year, those underclassmen can move into that position of senior mentors, and we will have a more functioning system. So with that, from Issaquah High School, and if I mispronounce your name, I am really, really sorry, and feel free to correct me. Siddharth Basri. Also from Issaquah High, Naomi Wu. From Skyline, we have Nathan Pan. And also from Skyline, Dishita Jain. Yes. Yeah, stay standing, stay standing. From Liberty, we just chose one because we had two returning, and that's Aditi Marhali. Yes. And then from Gibson Eck, Hava Alcorn. And, oh, I'm going to mangle this. Leilani Mathieu de Siga. Okay, I don't think she's here. So these are our new student reps for next year. Thank you so much for stepping up to serve. We're really looking forward to it. We will schedule an onboarding meeting where we tell you just everything there is to know about being a student rep and what the school board does and why we do it. And we'll also get you set up with each other so that they can have a texting or email or whatever your preferred method of communication is, so that you can talk to each other, so you can work together, so that Jack and Mia can help you if you have questions that you don't want to ask us. Anyway, we're really excited about this.
Can we do real applause?
Yes.
Yay! I guess I get to say that. Congratulations.
And I do again want to thank all of the students who applied. This was a really, really difficult decision for Director Moraldo and myself.
Yes, they were all awesome.
They were all awesome. It was really hard. In
It's like
fact, I
choosing
thought
your favorite
I
child.
thought we were going to have to do rock, paper, scissors on the last one. It
Oh, no,
was
I
really
put my hand
bad.
up. I'm like,
Yeah,
time to
she
arm
was
wrestle.
ready to arm wrestle. I would have lost that one. So didn't come to
And
that.
so with that wonderful review, I think we have a vote to make. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes. Welcome to your new roles. Thank you. Will we have a moment to thank our outgoing? We haven't talked about that.
Oh, we should.
So we should, I'll put that down to recognize our outgoing board reps as well. So we'll schedule something for that. And on a related topic, if we go to our next agenda item, we have revisions to GP 12, which is our student board rep policy.
I move the board adopt the revisions to GP 12 student representatives to the board as presented.
Second.
Okay.
Okay. I've totally lost the ability to track changes on this thing, so I'm just going to tell you what we did. In addition to the changes we talked about 2 meetings ago, where we eliminated some of the ABCD items under number 3. Number 2 now reads, student representatives will be selected in the spring prior to the year they will serve as representatives. The term of office will be 2 years, beginning in July of the application year and concluding at the end of June. Seniors will serve 1 year from July to June. And next year we'll get rid of that sentence. The overlap of terms will allow for mentorship by the more experienced representatives. I added a parenthesis in E. No one cares about that. On number 7, we say the application and selection period will occur annually in April. Used to say April, May. We ran into so many kids being unavailable for AP tests that we thought we were going to tear our hair out. So we're going to do it in April before AP testing. That's a must. In number 8, we changed the word applicant to student. So the student must be. In number 9, we have 1 ASB executive board officer from that high school, 1 civics government teacher from that high school, and 1 current student representative. And I didn't say from that high school because they weren't. So that's fine. And then I added number 12, which is in the event that a student representative is unable to complete their term of office, the board may appoint another student representative from the list of applicants, because we did have an issue last year where not every student was able to serve the whole term. And I wanted to just have that in writing that we obviously we have other students that we interviewed that would have been amazing. So We can choose from those kids if they are still willing to serve. I think that's it.
Why don't we see if there's any public comment on this one? Is there any public comment in the room? This policy, any public comment on the Zoom? Okay, thank you. Any board discussion on this one?
I just appreciate Dr. Weaver going through all of the work of rewriting this and updating it, and especially some of the things that we learned just even this year. And especially around having the students underclassmen serving for 2 years. You know, I was telling the whole time the students, like, we're building the plane while we're flying it. We interviewed you, or we put out an application without telling you. Fortunately, all the underclassmen said that they were willing to explore the option of being there for 2 years. So.
Any other comments or feedback? Anything from you, Superintendent? Awesome. Well, we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No, motion passes. Thank you for that work. Next, we will move on to works in progress. Superintendent, over to you.
Great, thank you. My first update is around a meeting with the, thank you. Thank you, student.
Thank you. We'll see you soon.
Thank you for coming with families. I attended a Puget Sound ESD meeting yesterday and had some helpful content highlighted for me, but also the other superintendents in the region. One of the items was around introducing folks to the Knowledge Society, which is a program and organization that basically is going to be is about Olympic level training for future innovators, scientists, and entrepreneurs. And we had 2 students from that program that are from Vancouver, Canada. And they talked about how, in short, this is basically a global human accelerator program. It is an outside of school activity, but it helps highlight for me and accentuate the kind of conversation that we've been having and that the board had last time during the debrief of both the NSBA and ASU GSV around the fact that we need to expose our students to these kinds of exponential technological changes that are very rapid, and bring forward these 21st century skills and different models of how learning can happen to inform the future workforce and their own likelihood of achieving different positions that are very flexible and agile in the world. So that was an interesting conversation. We also heard from the Office of Educational Ombudsman, which is sitting in the governor's office, and this OEO for short office provides possible, lots of content and contact information for anyone, any family to be able to bring forward any concerns or questions they have in navigating school systems across the state. It is a very valuable resource to families, and it was part of a Senate bill that was passed last year that gives it its opportunity to be available to families. So it sits under the Office of the Governor, not OSPI. And I just want to make sure that our families know that we do promote this on our website, and we also have it as part of the registration process as well. And it's an opportunity, again, it's an independent state agency that helps families navigate their public school districts. And then the final topic was around the state budget and legislature, which we've already received a very helpful and robust update from CFO Martin Turney. So that was a little bit of additional content that we've already heard about. So I was familiar with most of that. Also, adjacent to this Puget Sound ESD meeting, we had an opportunity by WASA to celebrate WASA community leaders and student board, and also a student leadership award. So we actually, as a district at Issaquah School District, nominated both Influence the Choice for Community Leadership Award. So congratulations to Director Moraldo and everyone at Influence the Choice. Director Moraldo was joined by the board chair and city councilor, as well as former school board member Barb DiMichele, to receive their recognition and certificate of honor as community contributors. And so that was very powerful. So hand waving here. And our Student Leadership Award, it's a nice sort of tie into our announcement for next year, goes to all of our student representatives. And so we did have in attendance Paige, Jordan, and Sophia, because they did also contribute by attending the legislative conference. So they joined us, they received their certificate, and Sophia's parents also joined along. So we had a really nice time over lunch celebrating both community contributions as well as our students and just highlighting that good work. So just want to say congratulations to all those folks. So there's something that we've done to highlight our student reps, but we will do more on the ones that have served this year. I also just want to say it's Teacher Appreciation Week. So one highlight for me was an email that we got about a transitional kindergarten teacher at Newcastle Elementary School, Kathy Noblot. And the board also received this communication as well that really expressed from a parent appreciation and admiration for Ms. Noblot. So this is one story of many outreach that we get during this week in particular, but also beyond this week of teacher appreciation. And just to really quote a couple of details from that email I want to just highlight. Quote, "We have been blown away by Kathy's exceptional teaching skills, patience, and unwavering commitment to the development and growth of each child in her care. She has taken on the challenging task of championing a program that teaches 4-year-olds kindergarten skills, and she has done an outstanding job." And we understand that the traditional program for kindergarten is a crucial part of preparing our children for the rigors of kindergarten. And Kathy has proven to be an exceptional teacher in this regard. She's gone above and beyond in providing a nurturing and stimulating environment that fosters learning and growth. And there is certainly more to this email, but I wanted to give an excerpt that really highlights some of that. And again, we have received numerous emails, the board included, just highlighting the great work of our teachers during this Teacher Appreciation Week. Two more final comments, which is our ed tech team has put together an open house for teachers to explore artificial intelligence apps. So again, tying back to our last board meeting conversation there, a huge thank you to Diana Eggers, who's actually here tonight because she's also presenting as part of EL 15 for helping to lead the team on this effort and to promote it. These sessions for our teachers and admin and staff are from 3:15 to 5:15 on these dates, which is May 22nd at Maywood Middle School, May 23rd at Pacific Cascade, May 25th at Cougar Mountain Middle School and the libraries, all of them. So it's really a time to stop by and to explore artificial intelligence apps, and the board is welcome to do so as well during any of those windows of time. So that's exciting work to help give us exposure and learning to artificial intelligence apps and those tools. And then finally, on Tuesday, Martin Turney, Tom Mullins, and myself met with a group of 7 residents at the Providence Point to update them on our work and just hear any questions and comments they had. And as always, it was from my perspective, in the past, time that we've met with them, and this year, it's been a very productive and open conversation. So those are my updates so far, and that actually could segue us nicely into our next meeting or next topic.
Thank you. Any questions or comments? Thank you, Superintendent. With that, we'll go on to our next agenda item, which is capital projects update, Issaquah High School Stadium. Superintendent, I see you have some team members joining you at the podium. How about you? Do you want to get us started?
Yes, that was my segue, was the last comment, because Tom Mullins is here, and as is Martin Turney, to discuss capital projects with a focus specifically on Issaquah High School. So Tom, will let you take it away.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Wanted to provide a update and follow up to we did a Issaquah High School Stadium improvements update at the March 9th board meeting. And then on April 19th, we had a IHS Stadium community listening session over at IHS to listen to some of the concerns that the community had. The purpose of the April 19th listening session was to have the district leadership, Martin Turney and myself, and a couple members from my capital projects team gather with and listen to the IH boosters and community members' concerns related to the stadium, including stadium lighting, stadium capacity, condition of the track, athletic field turf replacement, scope of the 2012 bond, and the status of the completion of the 2012 bond. Some of the issues discussed were the stadium lighting and concerns. One of the issues raised was stadium lighting. Next slide. Yep. Concerns were voiced related to the age and condition of the stadium lighting. The district committed to investigating lighting replacement cost and will get back to the group with follow-up information. Follow-up information, age of poles and lights were installed in 94. Condition, some of the light fixtures, bulbs were not working and the wood poles had twisted over time and unfocused the light from the field. The lighting levels, we had a lighting test done. Currently, they average around 20-foot candles. Optimal for a sports field is 50-foot candles. But since then, the district maintenance has went out in the short term, replaced some of the bulbs that were burnt out since that meeting and trying to keep that system as best as they can. We followed up a little more with more information on the stadium lighting. We priced, initial pricing comes in at about $675,000 for a new lighting system that would be comparable to other sports fields that we have at the other high schools and middle schools. The timeline for getting that lighting, if indeed it moved forward, would be 10 to 12 weeks for a complete system installation. One of the issues that we need to address is the permitting and be aware, currently working with the city of Issaquah to better understand the required permitting process with them. One of the other issues that was raised was stadium capacity. And concerns were raised about the commitment of the 2012 bond to increase stadium capacity numbers. The district reiterated that limitations by city code were ultimately the restriction of any significant expansion of the stadium seating. We talked about that in the March 9th board meeting. And conversations, committed to conversations with the city related to future additional stadium capacity seating and alternate solutions are being discussed underway. And that's for future projects. Follow up at this point, no further plans are being made related to significant expansion of the seating at the stadium, other than discussions with the city that I just talked about. Track condition was raised by a member. Concerns were raised about the condition of the track. It was expressed by one community member that the base rubber of the existing track should be removed and replaced along with the structural top coat, color coat due to deterioration of the rubber base or the base rubber. Although full replacement of the track base rubber was not anticipated in the 2018 levy funding, the district committed to investigating the possibility of moving that timeline up for replacement of the track base rubber and staying within budget. Since then, we've gotten pricing, and the pricing received is allowing the replacement of the track base rubber and stay within budget as established in the 2018 levy. And we are planning on completing that work summer 23 this summer. Athletic turf replacement. It was asked if the turf was being replaced and when the replacement would happen. The district let the group know the turf replacement that was part of the 2018 levy would occur summer 23 and would be done prior to the start of school. Follow-up work is scheduled and it's to be completed over the summer. Funding and timeline recap, stadium lighting replacement. A funding source has not yet been identified. If funding is identified and authorized, the project is anticipated to be completed in August of this summer, 23, depending upon permitting with the city of Issaquah. Track base rubber and surface replacement pricing received allowed us to move forward with that, stay within budget, and that is planned on being done over the summer also. Athletic field turf replacement, again, funded by the 2018 levy and is planning on being done over the summer and be completed for fall sports. Next steps, we want to continue discussions related to the replacement of the stadium lighting, keep that in the forefront, proceeding with replacement of the track field and track over the summer, and continued follow-up with IHS Stadium via IHS staff, email exchanges and phone calls as ideas, questions, concerns, etc. are raised. Any questions?
So I realized that the 2012 bond was a long time ago, and I realized we probably spent all the money. However, presumably there was money in the 2012 bond to add capacity to the stadium, which we did not do.
Correct.
So it would seem like lighting is something that we could do.
What did we do?
Yeah, or
The
what
bet-
did
the
we
better question,
do?
what did we do with the 2012 bond funds
the
for that?
bond
Because
funds-
I know we replaced the press box.
Press box expanded and replaced the press box. We did some, the ADA accessibility. The stadium previously did not either, the home side grandstands did not have ADA accessibility up into the grandstands. We had that, we added that to the project. There were some cosmetic upgrades with new rails and things like that, lighting underneath that area. Capacity was the major issue. If you remember at one of my board updates, we talked about adding that capacity to the visitor side stands. It was made clear that that was not desired. I backed off of that and was going to continue to have discussions and see what could be done.
So are you saying that we did spend the 2012 bond money, just not on capacity?
Yes, we did. And we have some funds left in that. I'm not sure of the exact amount. I'd have to run a report, but there are some funds left over.
So I have many questions. So I need to be able to track how much money was allocated in the 2012 bond for the IHS Stadium projects and how much was spent on IHS Stadium projects. I know you're not gonna have that for me tonight. I want to track how much was allocated in the 2018 levy for IHS Stadium upgrades, whether it's turf, track replacement, and how much has been spent to date.
Okay.
And then the bigger question that I really want to know is when our community passes a levy, it's a 4-year levy, 2018 to 2022.
Correct.
What is the expectation when it's presented to the community members who are approving these projects to go forward to our community to be voted on? The timeline expectation for those things to be done. And the reason why I ask this is 5 years later from when that levy was approved, like, no wonder things cost a lot more money than they would have 5 years ago. And so it's really important for me to know what else in that 2018 levy hasn't been done.
Okay. I can, couple answers. There was $1.925 million allocated in the 2012 bond, or yes, the 2012 bond for the IHS stadium improvements. Somewhere north of something less than that has been spent. 150 to 200,000 less than that. And at this time on the project, and in the 2018 levy, there was $1.3 million for the turf replacement at Issaquah High Stadium. To date, we have spent maybe 50,000, but we've allocated a lot more because we've gotten pricing and cut POs. So we're obligated to, I'm not sure, I'd have to get the numbers, Mark, and I have to run a report to get that exact number and find out what we've spent on with that. But not a lot's work has been done on the turf replacement yet, other than design and some other small steps. We've gotten pricing, cut POs for the actual turf replacement and the track replacement. I think that's somewhat, I don't want to guess, say it out loud.
And then while we heard from the community that they really wanted to have more seating done under the stadium, when I understand that you've made it clear that's not possible. I thought you told us you planned on having the visitor stands get to be the size to maximize the seat capacity that we could have. And so, but then I heard you tonight say that you've backed away from that plan.
Yes, it was made clear by the staff and the community members that I've spoken to over there, that the visitor side stands is not the priority. And so I backed off of that commitment right then to try to decide what other options we might have. We are shy by 367 seats of capacity. If you if you put those 367 seats somehow add them on to the home side stands, it can be done, but it's a very expensive endeavor to do. Those 367 seats would cost $500,000, something along that line. Whereas the standalone bleachers on the other side, we could have done a lot. On the visitor side, we could have done that, and it wouldn't have been that. But it didn't seem to meet the expectations of the IHS community and staff that I spoke with.
Can I-
The complaint has been our home side stands do not have enough seats. We want capacity on the home side, not on the visitor side. And to take the money in their minds and spend it on the visitor side was not desirable.
And is that when the decision was that in reference to the money from the 2012 bond? And so then it was decided that if we're not going to expand the visitor side seating, we'll do the press box and the ADA?
No, it was all the project was designed, and then during what they call the schematic design, there's pricing put to it. And it was obvious that the expansion of the home side was not going to be possible with the dollars that we had. So we moved forward with the press box and the ADA accommodations, those kind of things. I put a hold on the visitor side stands. We got pricing. I put a hold on that until we saw where we were going to come out in pricing when the project was completed. And that's when I gave you my report. We were done. We'd committed. We had some money left. I said, okay, let's move forward with the visitor side stands. After that meeting here, there was an outcry of, no, that is not where we want to see the money spent. We'd like to see it on the home side stands. So that led into the part of the community listening session, was trying to get over and hear what these people had to say about that. And we learned a lot more from that listening session. It wasn't just about capacity.
I have more, but
Well, okay, I was just trying to get clarity around, was replacement of the turf and the track part of the 2018 levy, or are we just saying there's still money in the
No,
2018 levy?
that was part of the 2018 levy.
It was. And why is it taking us till 2023 to do it?
But in my mind, I took over in 2019, and it was in COVID. We were trying to get other things done. We looked at the track, the turf portion of the field was not in horrible shape at that time. We decided to put that replacement off, do some dressing in the field, and do that and try to get another couple of years out of it to be able to do it now.
Okay.
Now, wise
Okay,
decision
needed
or not,
clarity
I'm
on
not
that.
I can't.
And
Okay,
was
thank
the
you.
2018 levy, was it just to replace the turf?
We do the turf and the tracks on the same schedule. We do turf and track at the same time. They're generally on 10-year cycles. This ended up being I think 11 or 12-year cycle by the time we got back, almost 13. I think it was 2010 when the field and track were last done. So it's generally on a 10-year cycle. Now, this cycle I talk about is kind of new. It's not like we've had turf fields for 50 years and have been doing this forever. They're all about 20 years old. Or this turf, this will be the second full replacement cycle that we're in. So we stretched a few more years out of the turf and then we do them all at the same time.
I see. I think the part I was trying to understand is it was determined that it would go ahead and fit in the pricing to do the base rubber. And I
Yep.
may not understand all the parts of this, which is
Yep.
is where I might be lost. But so was that not part of what was originally slated to be done in the 2018 levy?
The base rubber would not have been, it isn't necessarily wasn't planned on, but it wouldn't usually be done on the 10-year cycle. It would be done at the 20-year cycle to replace that. But we've had some deterioration. We've added a few extra years on it. There's been some deterioration of that base rubber and some issues. We had it tested. It was right at the bottom end of the cycle. So it was decided to look at it and get pricing. And what we can tell, the pricing came in very reasonably and
Okay.
stayed well within the funds that were available.
All right, thank you.
So my question, I think I'm clear on the turf track, but lighting, is that a net new request that's come out of this cycle? Or was that in past requests or in the levy conversation?
Since this has came up, I've looked through from the 2012, the bond, the 2016 bond, the 2018 levy, and the 22 levy, and I cannot find any requests from the schools or anything that talks about replacement of the stadium lighting at Issaquah High. We also checked with the maintenance facilities, checked the work order system, other than the most recent work order that was put in to replace some of the burned out lights. There hasn't been any work orders. I think the IHS community people would differ. They would probably think that they've been asking for this, but we can't find any record or history that states that.
And how does that normally happen? Is that a building request then it comes in, or is there actually a way for the community to put in that request?
It would usually come in historically would come in through a bond or a levy through the committee, through requests, and we go out to the schools and ask them for, what do you need? What do you want? These things, and they come in. We do that with the maintenance department. Then all those are prioritized and put into items that go in front of the bond or levy committee to decide what those items will make it actually onto the ballot, or be presented to the superintendent, to be presented to the board, to be put onto the ballot.
But up till now, lighting hadn't been on
They
those
had
lists.
not been any.
Okay, so I understand that people may have thought it was old, but
Yeah.
we don't have it in a formal request.
Nope.
So that's, okay, thanks.
I appreciate that. I don't know the why. I'm not an IHS parent and don't know the why in the how. Certainly I've heard about lighting for a while. And I don't attend any of those community conversations about the levy. So I don't know what was talked about there or side conversations. And I know sometimes there's horse trading that happens for what ends up on the final list on the levy. So just because it's not in our documentation about what went forward in a 2012 bond or 14 levy or 18 levy or 22 levy doesn't mean that it wasn't talked about. Just to be clear. But I think now that it's in front of us, it's certainly in my mind a safety issue. I guess I would say there's things that I don't mind that we need to stretch out as long as it doesn't compromise student safety. And I think that stretching out turf from a pure concussion and head injury standpoint, I don't really relish the idea of us stretching it out because we're talking about students' brains. And I think that we should be doing everything we can to protect them. And turf is one of those things that the age of a turf, why we do it is because of its breakdown and its less ability to prevent head injuries as part of that. Same thing I worry about the lighting. So for me, I think this is in the ideal world, the district would come up with sort of how do we figure out and reprioritize our capital levies in existence in order to fund this. But short of that, I would want to make a motion that we use our board reserve for this because this is a safety issue that I think needs to be addressed as soon as it's now identified and brought to us.
I understand that the community feels the lighting is inadequate, but is it a determination of those who evaluate lights that it's actually a safety issue? Or is it a desire to simply have something better?
I don't know if it's an evaluation of us that they've come out and said safe or unsafe and checked a box, but we had a lighting study done and we had lows of 9-foot candles. The average is between 18 and 20-foot candles. in front of the stands where you would get some light from the grandstand lights that we put in that helped light up the track area. You get a little lighting. Those were in the mid-30s. The average for new lighting systems and what the other stadiums have is 50-foot candles with a low of maybe at the outskirts in some areas 38 and a high of 65. So that 50-foot candles, and we're at an average of 18 to 20. So you can imagine it's harder for those athletes to see the ball, those kind of things. It's obvious that we had a photographer at the community listening session, and he took lots of different pictures from different angles, different stadiums, and it was pretty stark difference. So it's not like the turf where you can go and test it and say you get a certain bounce, that factor. And by the way, the IHS field has never gone even close to getting to, that's always been a safe field. It's just a case that the top, it starts to not look as good. Letters where they weld it and stuff starts to come apart, has to be glued more, those kind of things. So, but the lighting is, the guy who did the testing said it needs to be replaced. So
it needs to be replaced. And the question is, where does the money come from?
yes.
And I gather. you
Well, I think the
don't have
question,
an
the
answer
first
to that
question is how much money is it? Because it sounds like there's
675.
funds, well,
But there was,
that's the total cost, but there was a discussion of funds that yet to be decremented. So I think
yeah,
how much the delta is
right,
yeah,
because
is
what,
an unknown at the moment.
what are the unspent funds
Right.
in either 2012 or 2018 related to the stadium that would go against that
Talk about that.
cost?
So I can talk about, we have some, I can't give you the exact number. I don't want to do that in the moment, but I do know we have, as you mentioned, probably up to 200,000 left over from the 2012 project. We will likely have some left from the turf track project as well. And in the 2022 levy, we do have a reserve. We had the estimate for the playground at the ECE location came in quite a bit favorably. So we have put $400,000 in reserve for that levy. So there are some resources potentially out of those levies that we could and the existing projects that we could look at funding this.
I guess for me, I'd rather keep that 2022 reserve for the 2022 projects. I think part of what we've heard over the several months is that this blurring and blending of money and projects has probably been a challenge for our district. And so I don't really want us to perpetuate that. So while it's up to the district to decide where the money comes from, like I said, I think tonight I would prefer, but I don't know how this will work because we don't normally do this, but it's that strong of a feeling for me, whether it's added to the next agenda item, next agenda meeting or whatnot, but that I want to entertain a conversation to make a motion to use board reserve to fund this, barring any sort of district option, financing option that's better, or funding option that's better.
I would say that that's probably the most expedient way to accomplish it from the funding standpoint.
So just to be clear, if we do that, because obviously we've had a lot of conversations about cutting money from next year's budget, we do have a board reserve of, is it $1 million, $1.5 million? But if we spend it, the reserve has to be replenished next year. So how does that play with our existing budget?
That's a great question, and we are in the middle of the budgeting process, of which I would dive in to figure out how we would do that. We have the unreserved, undesignated amounts that we typically have as part of our fund balance that we could reduce to designate for that board reserve. So we would essentially take it from whatever our undesignated, unreserved amount is in fund balance at the end of the year and replenish the reserve for the board.
Well, but we also have the enhanced funding from MSOC and from all whatever other legislative actions that have happened for this session that we haven't designated. So that's also something like how you guys just designate the extra $3 million coming into the district on estimate is up to your purview.
Yeah, Director. Ronaldo?
I think one of the things as far as making this expedient is being able to have, you're talking about a 10 to 12 week timeframe to implement if the city is gracious with its permits. And so I think really having this in place by the next school year is important. And I don't know that waiting till another meeting puts a delay on that further, but I don't know legally action, if we didn't have designated action here, can we actually take action? And that's,
The belief at this end is that we could, that you could make a motion that could be voted on. We would just take public comment.
I move that we designate board reserve to fully fund the IHS stadium light replacement as quickly as feasible, barring any sort of superintendent suggested funding alternatives.
second.
Okay, I think your motion language just
Yeah.
addressed my comment, which is I would like to see the district come back at the next meeting and say, yes, we can pull money from here and here and here. No, we're really not comfortable doing that. We'd like to take it out of the board reserve, but sounded like you put that caveat in your motion.
I did, because it's what Director Marlowe said, like, I think we need to let the Chaparral projects team to get things in motion, because we know that Issaquah City, and I don't even know if do you have to have a permit to replace something that already exists? I mean, you're not
Oh.
actually,
Are
Yes.
these all
They're
the
going to
goals
be
and
Yes.
so
everything?
picky around the
The answer
light
is yes, I live
candles
in
and the
Issaquah. Yeah.
flooding and the, yes.
it's just being funny.
Answer is yes.
Okay, so what your motion is actually saying is go off and start the process, and unless you can come up with a way that you'd prefer to generate these funds, we are good with your taking it out of the board reserve. Did I do that correctly?
You did, and hopefully that's what I was trying to convey, because the board reserve exists for addressing emergent safety issues, which for me, that's what this falls into.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, because
I just want to do the public comment piece so we clear our appropriateness. Do we have any public comment
Like you do.
in the room?
Zoom?
I think on the Zoom. Oh.
Did you want to make the Okay, if you could come to the podium, please. And let me just remind you, if you could say your name and attendance area. All the good civil civilities I mentioned earlier, and keep your comments to 2 minutes or less, please.
Absolutely. Thank you. My name is Myra Vaughn, parent of a child at Issaquah High School. Yes,
And
and also a member of Booster Club. And I was actually brought into this discussion, not just because of my connection to Issaquah High School, but also because I'm a licensed architect and spent the first chunk of my career standing right here in front of school boards working on K through 12 school facilities. So to help the group kind of understand life cycle costs, systems, and just, everything that we've talked about tonight. I want to say thank you to the school district for allowing our group of concerned parents and community members to voice our concerns. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving us a chance to ask questions. Thank you for following up with your commitments to actually analyze the systems and provide some solutions and bring it here tonight. We're especially thankful to hear this conversation, to hear this discussion. Bottom line, we want an equitable stadium experience for our students, for the faculty, parents, community. We also want a safe experience. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Good to see you. Any other comments in the room or on Zoom, Stephen? We have one on Zoom. Hi, please introduce yourself and you'll have 2 minutes.
Hi, my name is Diana Goldberg, and I'm a parent of an Issaquah High School football player. Also Booster Club board member. I just want to say, first of all, thank you so much for listening, kind of echo what Myra has said. I also, just to address some of the questions that came up in the board discussion, lighting was not itemized on the bond, on the 2012 bond for either of the other stadiums, but was fully replaced at that time. So I just want to add that. And I don't believe that the 2012 bond included the ADA upgrades. I believe that was added on later on, and kind of the remainder of the project and what was able to be done based on the funds available kind of evolved from the ADA work that needed to be done because our stands are the oldest in the district, and they're the only ones that aren't kind of a single metal kind of prefab piece. So I think that those things need to be taken into consideration. I will say, having had two students play football at Issaquah High School, it is 100% a safety risk. You can't see the fields, and I am very grateful at the prospect of being able to see my younger son actually out on the football field for his senior year. He was a kindergartner when this bond was passed, so I'm grateful for that. And I also want to extend to the room, if our community as a group of parents can be supportive by going to the city and voicing our support for this project, please do not hesitate to reach out. We are partners. We need to behave as partners and act as partners and be supportive in that way. And it is really exciting for our community to see this very, very, very important, in my mind, long overdue, but vital safety upgrade for our students. So thank you
Thank
guys.
for your input. All right, thank you for your input. Board, back to your discussion.
I know we talked about some flexibility as far as where the funding is coming from. I mean, I would, as much as there are issues with taking from different parts, I would like to see us look at using the funds that were already allocated to the stadium projects from the 2012 and 2018 to be applied first, and using the board reserve for the balance.
Okay.
Okay.
We can
Yes.
do that.
And then again, if there were others, things that came out that you could figure out better, all the better, but to go ahead and use those.
Other thoughts or comments?
My only thought is just get her done.
Hey, how's it going?
Oh, I think we're.
Good.
Hopefully before something terrible gets done.
I just want to say thank you to Tom and your team, and going out and listening and engaging with the parents and giving them the opportunity to feel heard. I think that's just a really important part that we need to do across our system. I think this what demonstrates they elevated a really significant concern that was certainly about the safety of our students and our athletes, and we all collectively care about that and want to take action. So thank you for bringing that to us, because otherwise we wouldn't know.
Thank you.
Oh, I appreciate that. I had one other question was, so you had mentioned that the feet candles, was that before or after the lighting was, the lamps were changed?
It was interesting. We scheduled about a month ahead of time for the company to come up to the study, and the electrician who fixed the lights came up the day after.
Okay.
So we expect to see, and I was looking to, we were trying to find out the number of specific bulbs that were replaced, but it wouldn't, we were told it wouldn't have a significant difference. A lot of the problem with the lighting, existing lighting, is the poles over time have turned, therefore turning the light away from the field and away from where they're supposed to be. So even replacing the light bulbs didn't have a significant increase in total.
I think the city, knowing that right now the lights are shedding over areas that are not productive, and that this would fix that, might actually help you get that permit going through.
And they've been very willing to work with me discussions are going well, a process is in place. It's just the amount of time that they'll take.
And this is for, not just, and again, because I don't understand it, is this for the whole pole and the light at the top?
Yep, there'll be a full, and that's one of the details. There's 8 poles there now, 8 wood poles. It will go down to 4 metal poles that'll be in different locations and LED lighting instead of the old metal halide style lighting. And if you get a chance, swing by Issaquah High at night and see the stadium lighting as it exists, and then check it out at the end of the summer, you will see a huge difference.
So would this be more like the lighting at IMS? I mean.
IMS,
Okay. Okay.
SHS, Liberty, all of them.
Okay,
Same,
thank you.
Yeah.
And it'll be better for the fishes, which the city will love.
Yeah.
We have a motion before us. I think we're ready to take a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sirs. Appreciate that. I guess you're going to stay with us,
Yes.
CFO attorney, and we are going to do a budget update. Anything you'd like to start with, Superintendent?
Nope, we could just roll right into this next topic.
So I'll just give you the briefest of updates here for the status of where we are with the budget. Make sure my clicker's working here. So again, just a quick brief update. So we are in the middle of diving into our staffing. We do a lot behind the scenes to figure out, making sure that staffing FD is in the right place, working with our colleagues in HR to make sure that we have the numbers correct across our departments, that we are aligning those and building plans appropriately. Also mentioned that we have our number of projected students for Echo Glen, and that has gone up a bit. That 76 I put down there is the current, and I believe that's our average. So they may be actually up a little bit right now. What's good about this is we're able to provide some additional staffing that I think will help them get what they need for their student population. And at this time, we usually concentrate a bit on the 4 other funds aside from the general fund so that we can get those done and solidified and we can work on finishing up the big one. So we look at our bus purchase plan and make sure that our plan for acquiring buses and what's coming off of our depreciation is what we expect. And so we want to make sure that we have the right amount to purchase the buses that we're going to need to go forward. We also look at our debt service fund. We need to review that to make sure that we will be levying the correct amount to pay our debts appropriately for that year. We also are just now collecting these, the students do their budgets at each building. They collect those, they approve them, and they send them into us. So we gather those all up. We take a quick look to make sure that there isn't anything that we need to do to fine tune or make sure it's compliant. And then we roll that up into their individual fund. And that's of course the students fund, and it is a balanced fund. And then of course the capital facilities fund. So our projects are obviously, and our funding is multiple year, but we need to take a 1-year look to determine, what are we going to put into our budgets for the needs and our resources for that particular year to make sure that we just have enough capacity to carry out the projects that we expect to do in that time period. So that's the short update on what we're working on, and we continue, and we will be doing a lot of work from now until right up into July. So any questions?
Thank you. Any questions, comments?
I have a question back to I think it's the first page of your slide, about staffing.
Yes.
So I know that this is really an art, not a science, and part of it is as bubbles of kids go through various buildings and whatnot, it can't be equal. It can't be to the, hey, this class size is what do we shoot for? I know in any given building, it's going to be large. There will be, out of 16 elementary schools, one that is outsized, and that's okay. My question is there a system in place that you address that so it isn't year after year, it's the same building that feels that? Because we've heard consistently from one building this year, and when I look at the May enrollment, I can certainly see why, because it's not just one class that's big, or one grade level, sorry. It's 3 grade levels in that building that are much larger compared to the rest of our colleague schools. And I've lived through it personally, so I felt like school board members kids get the big classes, because my kindergarten class was 25. At Discovery and at Sunny Hills, it was 17. I was like, oh, lucky them. I'm just only a few blocks away from Sunny Hills. Or, last year, my child's biology class was 37. So I get any given moment, it's not going to be perfect. But year over year, if it's the same building or the same cohort of that feels inherently inequitable. Yes.
So I would say yes, and if we're talking about the same building, which I'm sure we are, I've been in dialogue with the principal and actually a couple teachers from a grade level that have been impacted. That has been taken into consideration for the following year, and I've made adjustments to that building. So we will not see, we do not anticipate seeing those levels, and I believe we've been able to, it gets tricky when you have smaller grade levels because it's harder to spread it among the different classes. But that is one thing I definitely took into consideration. If we are going to have 1 or 2 spots of higher class size, I wanted to make sure that it was not felt at the same building. So I did take that into consideration. Yeah.
I think that would just be an important thing for you, or maybe jointly communicate with the principal, so the parent community knows that they've been heard, and the teacher community, frankly, that, hey, we can't guarantee what next year is going to look like, but we hear you, and this is a consideration as we make the budget. We're really sincerely trying to have it not be where you are the only ones that feel this impact.
How are we doing with the kindergarten registration?
With kindergarten registration, we are trailing about 50 from where we were the previous year, and it's been consistent week after week. What is apparent is in a couple of pockets is where most of that is happening, and I think that's where we have more of our apartment buildings, and we have potentially folks who will be registering late. So we're not going to know that until the last minute. I'm staffing to a projection. I haven't made an adjustment down in those areas with the anticipation that we will see enrollment pick up there. It could be seen as a risk, but I think we know that we are going to gain enrollment there, and we want to make sure we're adequately staffed.
No, I think she was just doing that. Any other comments or questions? Thank you for the continuous updates. Very helpful. Next on our agenda, we have, this item is for possible board action, which is board resolution in support of the district strategic plan. So what I thought was maybe we'd hold on the motion for this one. Begin with a review of the resolution and what updates have been made, and if there's any public comment, and then at that point decide if we're far enough along we think to take action this evening, or if we would hold off. That sounds okay? Director Moraldo, did you want to walk at all through? I want to start with the actual resolution versus, unless, is there a bunch more to cover in the? Oh, we've given away the clicker, I think. Hold on.
Oh,
Can we
Can we
switch to
please show the resolution on
Word-
the screen?
Word
If
document?
you're okay with
resolution?
doing that, Stephen.
Since that's the thing we would actually be discussing and taking
Yeah.
action on, I'd love to start there. And if there's comments or questions in the discussion, we get back to the plan. I think we can do it that way. Because I think we did it the opposite way last time. I don't know that I loved it.
I know. So I just, I listened through our conversation to make sure I captured everything, but I took what we discussed in the last meeting, specifically around, okay, note to self, never take language from somebody else's resolution, because it's not going to work. But rather than having that, we're going to support the superintendent's strategic plan in its entirety. that we're supporting the priority areas and goals outlined in the 3-year 2023 strategic plan. So being much more specific, and it goes to, this is the piece that we'll be monitoring, is the priority areas and the goals. And so the other pieces of that really do belong to the superintendent. So, and then in the 4th whereas, I changed that since we did actually adopt the vision statement at the last board meeting. And then farther down, the whereas again, to keep the language the same. I mentioned that the strategic plan defines the priority areas and goals. And then in the bottom, this is the one that was the wordiest. So if you want to wordsmith it, you are welcome to, but I added, be it also resolved that the board of directors hereby expects the superintendent to provide an interpretation and monitoring of the ends one mission during the 2023-24 school year. And then that's the changes I made based on, we wanted to have language that we're setting an expectation. And the expects word, I think I had something else that was even kind of harsher, but I didn't want to put anticipates because that's a weaker statement. So it really is an expectation. I think I had directs, and I'm like, that sounds a little harsh. So I put expects in there. And then, so that is the updated resolution before you tonight.
Any comments?
You hit all the things I had in my notes.
I would just say that for me and the last part about the be it resolved, I'm not sure that I would need an interpretation. I think that could be what the vision is. So provide and monitoring of the strategic plan through ends one mission.
But I think in policy governance, the superintendent takes the ends and they interpret and then monitor, and it's never been interpreted. So I think that's going to be an important piece. So that's, I put it because that's how things worked. It's not just the monitoring, it's the interpretation. And that will probably be the greater discussion that we have initially, is how is the superintendent interpreting it?
Yeah, and it's what we do on all the other ends.
Sure. But right now I don't see anything about the strategic plan is what the point of why we're doing ends one now. And that's what's missing.
So how would you?
I would say, but that's why it doesn't make sense for me to say, if I were to say interpretation and monitoring of the strategic plan through ends one mission, that doesn't make sense because they're not interpreting the strategic plan. That's why that word doesn't fit for me. So
Wait, we're not are we monitoring the strategic plan?
that's the intent. That's the intent, is it's going to go under ends one mission. That's how we got to this point.
Okay.
So I don't know if it was part of interpretation and monitoring of ends one mission, including the strategic plan or something like that. That way it gets to your interpretation of the mission of ends one, but I want somehow the words of the strategic plan being in there.
Yeah, unless it's provided interpretation and monitoring of N1's mission, including the strategic plan.
No, I like that direction because it doesn't necessarily say that progress against the strategic plan is a key component of monitoring ends one yet. So I like the idea of adding that. Interpretation and monitoring of ends one. And maybe that's I guess, yeah, including the strategic plan during, maybe we just add that after mission, including the strategic plan. Because otherwise you could potentially monitor ends one and
never
not talk
include the
about the
strategic
strategic
plan.
plan.
That was the whole-
So I guess, yes,
Yeah.
mission
I
including
mean, I think,
strategic plan.
right. I mean, it's like implicit, but not explicit without something.
Okay, I'm going to go back to kind of Robert's rules. So we started a discussion without a motion. This is somewhat
Correct.
amending what was presented. So when if a motion is made, when it is. It's not as presented, so, but we haven't amended it.
We could make a motion and then somebody.
Make a motion to amend.
That would
it,
be the
is what
best.
you're saying.
Right,
Yes.
after, we're just talking, we're
Okay.
throwing out ideas. And then we would execute if there is a motion.
Or you could just
and
send us a
potential
version
amendments.
3 now and we could use that. We're getting all tricky in the Roberts rules.
I think it would be easier for Diane to follow if,
Yeah.
if
Okay.
we just did a motion and amendment and then
Mhm.
Okay. You want me
the
to try?
amendment. Sure.
Well, hold on,
Sure.
before,
Well,
we-
you,
hold on,
Are we happy?
hold on, before we do that. Is there any further discussion on the actual plan or anything we want to go back through on the strategic plan before we do this piece?
I would just say thank you for adding district leaders to the community engagement or the authentic engagement section. I saw then you added it, you chose to add it to a bunch of
Mhm.
others, which I think is important from just a accountability piece. So again, because I feel like our teachers feel like they're the ones that are doing all of this, and by and large they are, but it's through the work of our district leaders. So I think that acknowledgement is important.
Was there any other significant update you wanted to make sure we knew of before? we go
Sure,
forward?
Marcel Hauser, Senior Advisor Strategy. So there is one on in the authentic engagement area to walk through a little bit. So if we pull up the PowerPoint, I can walk through that area. That's probably the most significant. But just to share, we did explicitly call out district leaders or call in that and just make that explicit that when we say staff, we meant that, but we clarified that in 3 of the areas where it made sense. All right, got the clicker. All right, so I'm just gonna scan through. I shared this at the last board meeting, but one point here to call out here, the metric work, goal metrics, that is work that is upcoming in the next couple of months. So we're gonna dig into goal metrics. We're gonna start to look at leading indicators. So we're gonna start to really dig into sort of those work streams and work plans as we go forward in the next couple of months. So this did not change, so I'm gonna move past for time. I'm just gonna hone in here on authentic engagement. So there were a few changes that occurred here. The previous version on the 27th that was shared, it had 2 sort of strategies that were companion strategies. One was around creating a toolkit. The other one was around implementing that toolkit. We decided to merge those to create one mega strategy, which is around creating a co-design model for all district staff to use as we start to create engagement throughout the district. So we just thought it was create a better comprehensive strategy. It's a heavy strategy. There's a lot of work that's going to fall underneath that. The other piece, there was one strategy that was on the left side that was around creating an engagement, a component around engagement to one of our annual reports. It was more of an activity. So to me, we held on to that as an activity that we're going to move with going forward. So it's there, but we took that out as a strategy. Then the other major pieces, new addition is a strategy on partnerships, which did not exist prior. So there was a glaring need to make sure we had our eye on creating and fostering relationships and partnerships throughout the district. So that is a new addition on the right side. So that was the most substantive changes in any priority area was in engagement. And as we said earlier, just calling in the district leadership on each kind of area where we needed to call it in.
And just to add, so the partnerships did not come out of nowhere. What we were hearing was actually when we were reflecting back on all the feedback, looking back and going through discussion, that concept of partnership is sort of the next level of listening and following up. And through a lot of the conversations we are having in the community as we continue to engage is people want to step up and help. And we want to all be better serving our students and families as a result of all of the different supports that do exist in our community. And that can only be done through partnership together. So that's where it didn't come out of nowhere, but it was sort of around the edges and or embedded in a lot of the conversations. And it just became so clear to us as we were moving forward that this was a component of engagement as well.
One I think that was just on display in our previous item. So good job. Any other questions or comments? Just making sure we're all level set on the updates and changes. And then I will now say Oh, you know what? Let me ask for public comment. Is there any public comment in the room? Oh, I didn't do the motion yet. So close.
Do you want to?
Just do an initial
Hang on,
motion and
hang
then
on,
amendment.
because this is gonna be the resolution as presented, and then we're gonna amend it, and then we're gonna, oh my goodness, okay. I move the board adopt resolution 1204 in support of the district's strategic plan as presented.
Second.
No.
Well,
Let's amend it.
I hear amendment. Oh,
So-
you wanna- Oh, go ahead.
My recommendation would be to add the words including the strategic plan after mission in the last edited part, red line part that was provided by Dr. Moraldo.
And to be it also resolved.
Well, I'm gonna do it as a motion.
Is that a motion?
We have to
I
say,
said it's an amendment, so is that not,
oh yeah, you didn't say the words. You move to amend.
I move to amend.
Second.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you were just describing it. That's why I was clarifying. Okay, now we have an amendment.
And I second.
She seconded already.
Oh, okay. I'm trying to type.
And now I'm going to ask for public comment.
Yes.
Is there any public comment in the room? Is there any public comment on the Zoom? There is not. So all those in favor
Of the amendment?
of, yes, the amended motion.
No, the
Of the,
amendment.
oh, just the amendment of the amendment. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? No. So the amendment passes. And now all those in favor of the amended motion?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, we have done it. We have passed our resolution in support of the strategic plan. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Marcel. Okay, our next agenda item is monitoring for EL 15 technology. Do I have a motion?
I move the board accept the monitoring report for EL 15 technology learning environment as presented.
Second.
Wonderful. Thank you, Superintendent. I see you've got a team that has joined you here. I'll turn it over to you.
Great. So I'll just welcome Martin Turney, Rich Mellish, Diana Eggers, and Kathy Kropp to present on tonight's report. I do just want to share a couple of comments overall where we did make I'd made some minor updates to the interpretation based on last conversation with the board and discussion, and then focused on the evidence provided. That includes assistive technology components, some levy committee work, and the one-on-one. Additional evidence to reflect the connection of the use of technology to learning and instruction. Specifically that in 15.1 and 15.2 sections, and more expansive language in the interpretation, and also examples of rigorous content across all levels, including elementary, where some additions based on the conversation, and adding the concept of reliability in the interpretation component for 15.5. So just want to highlight some of the key changes, and then we can hear a brief update from Rich Mellish and Martin Turney with support from Diana Eggers and Kathy Kropp.
Rich Mellish, Executive Director of Teaching and Learning. So as we prepared the EL 15 monitoring report, a couple of recurring themes emerged. Last year was a very pivotal year for technology planning coming out of remote and hybrid learning. We had made some big leaps in the use of technology, and though eager to focus on in-person learning, we also wanted to take advantage of the lessons learned from the immersion into digital teaching and learning. So we were fortunate that it was a planning year for the technology component of the capital levy. This allowed us to set a new direction and make substantial investment to expand access and use technology in Issaquah schools. Second theme, preparing this report also highlighted how intertwined technology has become with teacher and student life, particularly in our preteens and teenage students. As digital natives, our students use technology to communicate, socialize, learn, access their teacher, express themselves, and engage with their environment. As a result, most components of schooling has a digital aspect to it. It is often not easy to separate from the in real life experience. Social emotional learning, health education, academic learning, behavior supports and discipline, and student life in general are intertwined with technology. The third theme that emerged as we prepared this report was that this is a report about last year. It's really, we find it very difficult to talk about technology and stay in the past. The nature of technology is constant change, and we are always learning, adapting, and shifting and planning for next steps with technology that have led to what we are doing this year. So we know we have a school board that deeply appreciates the opportunities and the challenges associated with technology. And so we are here to receive your insights and feedback and to offer any additional information that helps understand and inform how we are leveraging technology in our schools.
Thank you. You know what? I'll do my public input now. Get that way. Any public input in the room? Any public input on Zoom? Thank you. Board discussion.
Well, I had one question, which is in number 3, where we talk about the courses available to our students, and we list all of the technology courses available to our middle school students. And I'm sure you're going to tell me this is all about staffing, but one of our middle schools has dramatically fewer opportunities for students than the other 5. Pine Lake has a whopping 1 class. So what's going on there?
That one of those, my understanding of that one has always come to the music electives, that with the 6 period day, you have very limited electives, and our band and orchestra
Choir.
eats up basically all the electives for students who want to stay in that music for their entire 3 years that they're in middle school. And so that has been the big competition for expanding those technology-based electives in that school.
And that's only true at Pine Lake, that kids are that wrapped up in music?
Yeah, as far as I know, I mean, being in my 4th year as a Pine Lake parent, right? I mean, it's an expectation. Your student does band, orchestra, or choir when you come in from elementary school.
Mine didn't, but okay.
I've heard this for years, and I say, as long as we continue doing the same thing and not providing additional options for students, they're not going to take the options that don't belong to them or that aren't available to them. So we can say, here's the 3 things, everybody wants them, but when we never make anything else but those 3 things available, then how do we move forward?
Or do you offer other courses when kids are signing up, but they're just not choosing them?
For this last year, I would have to look into that one. I think sometimes there's traditions of what we know students will sign up for, but I don't know what other additional options they've floated with the students.
I will say this is why it's been so important to me for the calculation of PE seat time. And I've asked for that to be done, and to my knowledge, it still hasn't been done, because when I do it, it shows that 4 trimesters is sufficient. Right now we require 5. And why this matters, because at Pine Lake, as you see, if they had another trimester where they could choose this, it would be really helpful. So because as is, they get 1 trimester to choose something if they're doing band, orchestra, choir.
What? I didn't hear the phrase you said when you calculate.
The seat time for PE. So
Oh,
because
seat-
currently
seat time.
seat time.
Okay.
Because currently we do, the expectation is a 6th grader, you do 2 trimesters of PE and 1 of health.
Mhm.
As a 7th grader, am I not?
It's the same.
No, I would have to go back to my notes, but yeah, you're right. 2 of the years you take 2 trimesters of PE and 1 trimester of health, and 1 of the years you take 1 trimester of PE and 1 trimester of health.
Right. And so what that does is that leaves just 1 trimester open for our
For a
students
different elective. Yeah.
versus and so our philosophy as a district and board has always been about choice. And so to me, it seems like they're not given choice when they have to take PE that I don't think that they need.
That is
Well, it
certainly
just
something
also
we can look.
feels like we're shortchanging the kids who don't do music. I mean, there are kids who don't do music.
But that's the thing, kids that don't do music would be in something. right? I guess the question is what is offered to kids? And then what ultimately gets enough kids to run the course? Because if kids aren't taking music, they're taking something. Whether there were enough of these similar courses to that list that were offered, but not enough kids signed up, so they can't offer it, or the kids are choosing other courses.
Yeah.
But if you don't, so it is a question of what we're offering. Because
Right,
if you
that-
don't ever offer it,
Right.
then clearly they're not going to be able
No.
to take it.
Well, I mean, we're not going to resolve it tonight, but I did
Yes.
just want to point out that it's really dramatic at
The
Pine.
thing is, it's been a question
Yeah.
that I've asked every year and I
If
get the
more
same
people want
answer. But what we are not hearing is what are we saying that we're going to always basically pigeonhole kids? If you're in Pine Lake, good luck, music, whether you're tone deaf or not. So it's just a matter of what opportunities are we providing? And we've been asking this for years. And it feels like, and also I'll go to my feelings. It feels like what we as a board say about this, it doesn't matter. Pine Lake's going to stay the same way it is because that's what they want to do. And we're sitting back going, but technology really is something that we need to be preparing our students for. And the opportunities in this area, there's not a lot of people going into music from here. There's a lot of people going into technology from here.
Okay, so we've turned this into a good like a good discussion
a
on middle
different
school
discussion.
programming, which is helpful. I do see that we could have a beginning of that conversation with some additional follow-up, it sounds like. So I mean, it looks like Sherry Cox or Rich might have some more to say on this one, but we can also allocate more space and time outside of just this EL to pursue some of this line of questioning and discussion.
I guess my point was, but it's been brought up every time I've had this EL for at least the last 5 years.
So we will do a better job of scheduling the right conversation. I've got it. So thank you.
Yeah, and the only thing we were gonna add is that apparently wood shop is also a very popular one at Pine Lake, and it's yet another competitor for that spot, but we can have a further conversation and delve more deeply into this. at a
Right,
future
because
date.
when we went on the tours of Pine Lake, when we first opened that school, that was a big deal, the wood shop and the courses around it. And that's just not listed. It's not a technology course. Well, it depends on what things they're doing within wood shop could involve technology, but it's just not a core technology class, but that's all good.
Other questions or comments?
So since this is about last year, I don't have as much like I do about this current year. And so to say, as you guys look ahead, so one of the things is when I have a student who has to have her textbook and her computer that go back and forth with her to middle school, it seems to kind of defeat the purpose. And so when her backpack weighs 1/3 of her body weight, we should be doing things again. Can our just first look through the lens of let's not harm our students. So it's a reflection of this year, not last year, and I get that. But the other thing is what you're saying is, seems like that based on that, this monitoring report should probably be one we do in like first off the bat. So if this was done in our first meeting in September, that way it would be an immediate reflection of the previous year. To your point about technology being so different, it's still yet fresh in our mind, yet we're monitoring it, and then we can come back the following year and go through. That might be a better sequencing for us for this particular one to be monitoring the first one in September.
I ask which textbook your course? No, okay, or maybe offline sometime. From a curriculum point of view, we've tried to provide home textbooks and a classroom textbook, so students are minimizing how many textbooks they're going back and forth, but I would at some point love to hear if there's a specific place where we haven't done that. So.
Right, and as we talk about, so much more in next year's monitoring related to this year, it will also be interesting to have information about how teachers are integrating the AI concept, right? What they're trying to do to integrate it, ban it, just where they're going, both the district and teachers in general. In that one, because we know it's happening this year. Students are using it, classes are using it.
We also know what's happening this year is that many of our high school students are not using the district issued device. And so I'd really like you guys to provide a real report on what students are actually doing. And so, because it should be about what value is this bringing? And I'm not sure having one-to-one technology without bringing your own device option has been something that has been uneven at best, but certainly not, it's not had the impact that I think the people in this building think it has. And so if the issue is about the equity of the device that a student is given, then buy less devices and increase the quality of the device. So then that's what we're worried about. So let's buy less devices. But when we know that 97% of our students and families have access to technology at home with broadband, then we should shrink what we're delivering to our high school students. So they're already using the device that they feel most comfortable and familiar with outside of testing days. And then leverage that dollars to provide whatever device we need to, whatever quality or whatever bells and whistles it needs to the 3% who really would benefit from that. And I think you would make a lot more people happy. And so we've heard from every student, every high school in our district at the beginning of the year on the dissatisfaction with the device that was provided to them. So I hope, again, back to our strategic plan, that we listen and adjust. And that's going to be something that I expect to see in next year's monitoring report that I have serious reservations about based on our stakeholders, which the most important one in this particular one is our students. And so that's a big deal. And maybe that's part of just newness. And so they already have their devices. So as it ripples through time and our middle schoolers get used to just having their device, then so be it. But then we probably need to toggle and adjust, because we're going to be in this transition for 3 years, because we have high schoolers that, have come in with their own devices. So that should be a consideration and approach. And I know that based on probably the volume of feedback that our high school teachers have relented, because I know the first line was beginning of the year is like, you will use your district device, period. And then appropriately so, they have pivoted away from that. And now it's, hey, it's really important on April X date, you bring your district computer so it can use its lockdown browser and all this stuff for testing. So
I guess it would be good to find out what is really happening as far as the use of the devices. The students, the high school students, are they using our device? Are they using their own device? I mean, what is the reality now once they got over the hump of the start of the school year and that device? Because I don't know.
I think also, some of the things I heard is that for some of the classes, probably more CTE type classes, software needed on the device was more complex than the device would be able to handle, or students didn't have access to be able to download what they needed for a class that was specific to that class as far as a software program. And so how are we helping students do that? And my biggest thing as we start talking about, and next year, is to really look at how we're integrating laptops or those devices into the educational framework. How are, and is it a hit or miss? Like, is this one teacher saying, yes, we're just going to use it for testing, or you're just going to use it to access a textbook, in which case it becomes a very heavy textbook? Or is it actually being integrated as, that's your note taker, that's where you're going to turn things in, you're doing your work while you're in class on your laptop. So how is it getting integrated to the actual classroom time and learning?
right, because you can't even turn in your assignments on your district computer in Canvas, right? You have to take a picture of it and then upload it to Canvas, because it's not like the district computer can do that part. So a lot of the
I
turning
think
in
that's
of,
class specific.
but a lot of the turning in of homework, you have to use
Yeah.
a different device to like take a picture of it, get it uploaded to Canvas. And so if there is a way that they can be using their district computer, because they're not doing, it's not the assignments on.
No, I'm just saying I know in my house, there's some classes it's literally on the device. We got, early in the school year, there seemed to be some confusion about pictures and not pictures, but I checked the little submitted thing all the time. That means it was submitted on the device. 7th grade, I live by the submitted circle. So, but I do think there's some setup and differences in how people are. There's some classes that they accept nothing online, so then what happens? So there's absolutely unevenness, but it can be done for sure. Social studies. Oh, politics. Any other questions or comments? We have a motion on the floor. Excuse me, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any against? Thank you, the motion passes. Our next topic is monitoring ends 3, civic engagement. Do I have a motion?
I move the board accept the monitoring report for ends 3 civic engagement as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Superintendent. I see you have additional team members joining us at the podium. I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. So first of all, welcome to Dr. Dana Bailey to launch the discussion on ends 3. Just a couple of key points before she launches in, which is that, again, as we heard feedback from the last board meeting, we've integrated some of the discussion into the interpretation and in some cases, the evidence. In particular, highlighted in 3.5, the impact of social media on student well-being as more explicit in the interpretation, and then added more as we sort of shifted towards also understanding the land component, land acknowledgement components, and since time immemorial of our work, adding that in across multiple areas. And then overall, again, increase some of the levels of opportunity for our elementary students as well. So just wanted to make sure I highlighted some of those changes. And Dr. Bailey.
Great, thank you very much. In preparing the monitoring report for civic engagement, we considered and prepared 4 main streams of evidence. The first through line is the social studies curriculum, what the students are taught, the scope and sequence, the cadence at which the content is taught, and how successful students were in learning the elements that make up the learning to be a responsible member of society. This includes the since time immemorial curriculum that has been added and the land acknowledgement that is done at the beginning of the years in our schools, at district meetings, and at community events, which serves to strengthen the community understanding of the First People and the importance of the natural resources we enjoy every day and everywhere in our district. The second through line is the social emotional learning that is taught throughout the system. Included are sample lessons from the curriculum and data from the students about how they learn about and show respect towards diverse cultures. The survey questions shown connect our desire for civil discourse while honoring and behaving respectfully towards people with differing ideas and from different cultures, and connecting this to individual students' decision-making through the many decisions they make on a daily basis. The third through line speaks to social media and the impact of social media has on our students and their development. We can agree that social media is here to stay, and while the platform or platforms change quickly, and access is increasingly more available. The data from the Healthy Youth Survey and our own student surveys show that students by and large recognize online bullying behaviors and generally know how to respond. Going forward, we have mirrored the social media questions in our high school surveys, similar to our middle school surveys, to be able to collect and report longitudinal data. The final through line is on sustainability and supporting students in their efforts to recognize and build systems in their schools and in their communities that support the use of natural resources as responsible citizens. The projects completed last year inspired other projects that were completed this year, and the team is here ready to take questions.
Thank you. Questions, comments?
I'll just get us kicked off. I really appreciate that you provide the essentially red line version and the or the whatever one. Clean version, thank you. It's been a long meeting already. So page I don't even see what page it is. But the table where you talked about the middle school students who use social media, and you list like 6, 7, and 8. To the point about what Marnie's organization does, I think that we don't talk enough about sort of positive community norms. Because sometimes your student will come and say like, well, I'm the only one who doesn't have a phone, or I'm the only one not on TikTok, or I'm the only one, right? We're all parents in this room. So it would be really helpful, I think, for the district as part of this work to be able to share that out with both students and parents. I'm like, look at, actually the majority of sixth graders don't use social media, because that's really powerful at the dinner table for parents to have. So not a criticism or critique about this, but I think there's sometimes we have this information that we need to actually use to then leverage and further the impact of all the work that you do for this.
Noted, thank you. Because all sixth graders don't actually have phones.
Mine included.
Other comments? Or questions? I know for me, I spent a lot of time reading this sections on the, is it 3.4, understand and respect diverse cultures. It's interesting to look at that survey information of our students, and actually quite heartening to look at it how it changes over time, right? Middle school seems to be a little harder to understand differences, which is maybe not surprising, but then it levels back out as they get older. So I spent a lot of time reading those charts and just pondering what that must feel like from an experience perspective. And I think that's pretty positive information.
I think being in a middle school moment and thinking about how middle school students might respond to the neutral question. There are going to be middle schoolers who pick neutral when they don't really know what to say. So I often just hold that in my mind, that neutral to some students could be a positive, it could be a true neutral. And in this particular question, the edits going forward are going to be changed to I act respectfully to others who have ideas different than mine. Because I think the appreciate is a question, is just a word choice that maybe middle schoolers could give us better data if we ask a more specific question.
I would just say in 3.5, the data that you presented shows that when it says 42% of sixth graders feel very prepared to answer the question when using social media, how prepared do you feel when you encounter negative or harmful comments? And 42% say very prepared. That's 42% of only the 40% are using it. So you're saying only 20% of our sixth graders feel very prepared to address harmful comments that they see on social media. And so I think it's a huge opportunity, and that's why this is such an important thing for them to be able to learn right at the time then it's like that just-in-time education that they really need to really help them.
Your comment makes me think of something, and I'm actually realizing that it's not in really much of our monitoring, but when we start talking about conversations about how to address certain things, a lot of that is things that is a parent education opportunity that our partners would do, our partners like PTSA and their Parent Wiser. And I don't really see that in our monitoring where, this is being done not by the district, but by some of our partners, whether it's ISF or the school district, the PTSA. Or so is that an area that might be, that we're identifying? So what work are we doing with our partners to ensure that we're supporting students in this area beyond the classroom? And that's just a pondering based on your comment. And so
Right. It might be good to add that. I know probably in the past it's been a struggle because the ends are a lot about what all students get, right? And that would be for certain not something that all students or families participate in. So it wouldn't be heavy evidence, but it could be, but I'm not saying don't add it. I'm just saying it has to be kept in its context if you really don't know
But it's
how
like
broadly.
when we get AP data, right? That doesn't represent all students either. So there's a lot of times we get data that doesn't apply to,
Right.
every
It applies to
student.
all the students that took it. Right. And we
Right.
get data on, other courses for all the students that took that,
but we don't like, in here, we won't find out every single class, every single student took in this topic that would then direct. So I think there's times where you can pull in measurements that,
right. I'm just saying
Yeah.
that you make it clear that this is not by stating this, the expectation that every parent has had this training or information.
Right. I think what's interesting about this point, though, is in cases such as this or other topics, how strategic is the district being in leveraging how partners can support our community? And I think that is something we're not talking about. You're right that everyone won't take advantage of that, but I mean, it just begs the question, we have this whole student to take care of, and we can't do all of it ourselves. So are we being thoughtful in what are these additional services or infrastructure or support groups? That's actually a really interesting conversation if we start to look at it as a bigger picture. And I recognize what you're saying, right? Everyone won't take advantage, but there is, I think, a question of if we're really trying to focus on citizenship, well, then are we being thoughtful in our engagement, right? Could the PTSAs or ISF or someone else be intentionally helping us in some of these? I think it's an interesting point. And they certainly are. So I'm not meaning to say that they aren't, but just how intentional is the plan for it?
Thank you.
And so I'm on page 12, since I finally found my right pages, sorry. Toggling between the red line version and the clean version. I'd be curious to what your perspective is on why the knows how to report bullying drops pretty significantly by 12th grade. So it kind of concerns me that in 10th and 12th grade, so what our high school students probably we see they're experiencing more of it and have less either knowledge or agency for how to address it. So I feel like, yes, middle school is that opportune time to really talk about what we're doing before you get that resource or tool called digital, whatever, social media, but then we somehow are losing that.
The only, I did notice that same trend, and the only thing I might offer for consideration is this is Healthy Youth Survey, which would have been taken right when students came back from the remote hybrid year. So it could be that in their recent memory, they hadn't been in school to receive the training that they might have had in a non-COVID series of years. So it's interesting and important to note that it does, it falls off by about 10% from middle school to high school. Could be that high schoolers don't respond positively to this question in the Healthy Youth Survey. I'm not sure, but it's a good noticing.
Right. And the second line of that is terrifying as a parent. And I think that's something that all of our parents should be aware of, that so they can, again, another dinner table conversation to ask, hey. And so, right, this isn't all the school district's responsibility to do this. The parents have to be empowered to do it. But as parents, like, it's also coming to us at this like fire hose type of speed and volume. So having like that knowledge would be really helpful to know. And I don't know how you tackle that or do that or communicate that. So Tag, I'm glad I'm not it.
Thank you.
But again, it just seems like that we have so much knowledge that we have to figure out a better
Sounds
way
like a
to
great partner
communicate parents.
program.
Yeah.
Well, I know the PTA has done a number of parent eds over the years on social media, and how parents can engage with their children over social media and such things. So they have been a good partner in that.
Any final thoughts on this one? We have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any against? Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, wonderful. So next, we have a first read, of proposed revisions to ends 3, which we were just talking about, civic engagement, which is board work. Director Weaver, I believe you put forth this proposal, if you could take us through this.
Yeah, this was language that I originally thought maybe could land in our vision, and Director Gallinger suggested that it belonged here potentially. So I am proposing that we simply change the first line of civic engagement to students will live as responsible members of society, demonstrating integrity and compassion. I have no idea how you monitor that, but I think it's a worthy goal.
Hence why it's an ends. Thank you for taking us through
It
that.
is something that the board would like to see in all of our students. So it's an end.
Why don't we see if we have any public input on this one? Any in the room? Any on the Zoom? None. Any board discussion on this one?
I think it works.
Okay. Okay.
No, I would just love to hear the superintendent, since to what Director Weaver just sort of mentioned, alluded to that the aspirational part of it. And I know the last bullet certainly touches on it, but just would love to hear, because we do all this in concert with our superintendent, so we don't want to be getting too far ahead of us.
I mean, the concepts throughout all the conversations, it's logical that we would have more of a statement on integrity and compassion, because that's sort of what we're trying to really do as we develop and support people, our youth, to become excellent humans in life. My only wondering was, as was sort of mentioned, was how do you monitor this, or how do you show reasonable progress, and how do you develop and integrate evidence? And I can think of a lot of ways, from our social emotional learning supports to increasing our efforts with restorative practice and that kind of work. But my only wondering was, does it live as a 3.8 bullet? Because it seems consistent with some of the verbiage in terms of the demonstrate is actually a word that is used in 3.3. So having students will live as responsible members of society, but end statement, and having these other components that describe what that means. I wasn't sure if it should live above or it should live below. Although it certainly needs to be called out explicitly, because I've heard these themes throughout. So it was more of a wondering, and that's really back to the board for discussion.
Well, if you turned it into a 3.8, you would absolutely have to have specific evidence related to that item. By having it up in the top, it's part of your overall interpretation and the overall collective evidence of 3.1 through 3.7. So that's the. don't know about
I could see
date,
both
but
ways.
they're
Yeah, I could see it
3.8.
both ways, to be honest. So it's just more of a discussion to
Now,
hear
I
from you.
suppose, actually looking at this more carefully, there's a little bit of overlap with 3.2, which is ethical principles, but I don't know. I think by keeping it in the first line, it is a more visionary, this is what we want. If it becomes a bullet, then then you really have to figure out how to monitor it. So.
Yeah, it seems like where it is, it gives it, or it's supposed to be, it gives you more flexibility in how you interpret and monitor, like bring evidence forward for.
Great question. Any other thoughts or comments? Director Weaver, do you have what you need to come back for our second read?
Am I changing something?
Well, I
Didn't sound like it.
didn't, not so far, but I imagine you would
If
take
I'm
it
not
away.
changing anything, then yes, I have what I need.
Perfect.
No.
Very sassy right
Sassy.
now. Thank you for doing that update. Next on our agenda, we have a review of the interpretation of ends 4, life management and personal awareness. Superintendent, do you want to walk us through your revisions?
Yes, I have a short overview of this interpretation, revision and review. So as with prior interpretations, I did look for ways to make the interpretation more concise and reviewed the words for clarity while also ensuring this did not lose meaning or intent. There were some minor adjustments to some phrasing consistent with my voice and perspective professionally, with a focus on the application of skills and values throughout. In addition, I added some specific references to actual social emotional learning skills and competencies in key areas like in 4.2. I added the role of ethical behavior and more analysis on the use or misuse of technology consistent with even the EL 15 adjustments in 4.3 to have that companion language mirror, and put more clarity on what higher level thinking skills are in 4.5 and what's really breaking those skills down, because if we break those down, those will also serve us well as we navigate this next world of what will happen through technology changes. So made those very clear in my mind. So eager for discussion and feedback.
Thank you. Board, any feedback, questions, or comments?
I did like the in 4.6, the fail forward. I'm not sure, I guess I have something in my mind what it means, but I'm not sure what others mean by the phrase.
I think it's consistent with the intent behind EL 12 in terms of learning.
Yeah.
Like you do fail and you have to learn from that. And there's challenge and resiliency skills that come forward, as well as new insight for how to do something better and to push through.
Yes, because our students need to learn that failure is a part of the process of learning, right? You aren't the failure. It doesn't label you as a person, but it's an action that you go through as you try and learn things. Some things don't work and you learn from it and you adapt and you move on. And I think it's important for kids to learn that. So that's good. I like that being called out.
Other thoughts or feedback? I continue to appreciate your becoming more succinct, and I think the interpretations have been more clear. So I appreciate that. Any additional feedback on this interpretation? Okay. Superintendent, do you have what you need?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Oh, I did say we would allow public comment on that one. So I will do that. Is there any public comment in the room on the superintendent's interpretation of N4 learning management? Is there any public comment on Zoom? Okay, thank you. With that, we transition to legislative matters. Director Gallinger, do you have anything you'd like to add on that?
I have no updates. I'm enjoying this pause and that.
Pause in the action. Thank you, sir.
I will say that the governor has called for a special session of the legislature to deal with the Blake decision. So hopefully we will see something, because now you have cities that are all doing their different ordinances, which is just going to create chaos. And it does impact students because some of that is, if it becomes legal and for everyone, it includes them, and that is not the best thing for students.
Look forward to what comes out of that session for sure. Next, we have announcements and correspondence. I know correspondence has been included with the agenda. Are there any additional items that board members would like to share at this time?
Actually, I'm a little bit confused because this says that we haven't had any correspondence, but we've had a whole raft of, oh, no, when we're copied on it, you don't include it, right?
Also, when it deals with student matters, and discipline and things
Okay.
like that, I
Okay,
keep it out of the. board
that
packet.
answers that question. Okay.
Any additional items? Okay, thank you. Calendar.
May I share one,
Oh, sorry.
which
Yes.
is important to highlight because of our work with secondary. So there was a annual Issaquah School District CTE Student Showcase that is occurring on May 30th from 4 to 5:30 here in the district office. And that's really about recognizing the Issaquah School District CTE students in middle and high school. So I wanted to bring that forward on behalf of our CTE team and Director Lisa Neighbors and all our students, of course, and teachers.
Thank you. Are there any? If I move to the next topic, which that sort of fit into, calendar and future agenda topics, any additional items to calendar? I am not holding any.
Oh, yes, first August.
Oh,
There
the
was-
first August meeting.
Yeah.
Yes, okay, so we do have one board meeting calendaring update to make, which will be for the first meeting in August. I, of course, do not have written down here what our outcome was, so
yeah.
if I have maybe a motion.
Well, just in discussing personal life, kind of think that there won't be a quorum on August 10th.
Mhm.
And so I have a wondering if there would be a quorum on August 8th. I know I am available.
I am available on the 8th.
I am available on the 8th,
That is good, because I am.
Right.
but you weren't available
weren't
on the
available.
10th
Correct,
either,
I was
so,
not.
yeah.
And that was true for you too, Director Gallinger, right? Correct?
Okay, but at least this way we have 3 and before we only had 2.
Right. Is,
Superintendent, does
Yeah.
that work for you?
does that work?
Yes,
That would be,
that does work for me.
Okay.
Thank
Okay.
you for asking.
all right, so I'll make so that we can get it calendared and get it, make it official so that everybody has it on their calendar. We move the August 10th regular board meeting to Tuesday, August 8th.
Second.
Any additional discussion do we need? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Nope. So we will move that date in August. Any additional calendaring? And thank you for remembering that one. I had forgotten to make a note.
I don't know if this is exactly calendaring, but I wanted to bring it up because I'm not supposed to take action for the board by myself, which is Director Moore and I had discussed the possibility of doing a presentation proposal to WASDA, something along the lines of how we used various forms of community input for a successful superintendent search. Because I think we did a lot of things that other districts would find helpful. So unless somebody says, no, that's a terrible idea, I will go ahead and propose it.
I think it sounds great.
I think it's a good one. Any other items?
I would like to propose that we do an emergency monitoring of EL 13 facilities. It was monitored in this calendar year for 2020, October of 22, or would have been last year. I feel like this IHS Stadium brings into our visibility about issues of facility, like safe facilities, and EL 13 talks about Failed to develop a plan and establish priorities for construction, renovation, and maintenance projects. In setting priorities, the superintendent shall not fail to, and A is assigned highest priority to the correction of unsafe conditions. Number 6 talks about allow facilities to be unclean, unsanitary, or unsafe. And number 4 talks about fail to project lifestyle costs as capital decisions are made. And for me, it's really about, I feel like we just don't still have a good understanding of if a project was sold to our voters in 2018 to be done in that 4-year levy cycle, and it's 2023 and it's still not done. There's not that visibility or transparency for it. And so it's really, for me, less about those bullets that I just mentioned and more about a greater understanding about, I still don't understand about what capital projects, and what it wasn't answered to me, what remaining ones are there from the 2018 levy? Like, what are the things that we don't know about that haven't been done that were promised to voters? And so I think we really need to bring that conversation and have that. And because I don't think that should be a conversation that's had via email updates to the board on, hey, here are the questions you asked, here are their answers. I think that we actually need to publicly know that, and that we need to have time as a board to be able to ask these questions and dialogue. And so it's not to be a criticism on, well, how could you know the lights weren't like appropriate? Like that's not fair. This isn't a try to be a gotcha, but it's really to revisit on what is it from our capital levies that aren't done? What is it we need to like reset expectations for the 22 levy that just passed on what projects are there? And I want to hear an update on, okay, so where are we with those capital projects that we have promised? Like, where are we with those? And when do those actually plan to be done in this 4-year cycle? Because we somehow as a board need to get a handle on what's being done, when is it being done? And if it's off schedule, that's okay, but why? And we're not getting that information still. So that's my reasoning behind the why I would want to emergency monitor EL 13.
That makes sense. I think you should go ahead and make a motion to that.
I'm a little bit,
Oh, maybe.
about half of what you just said doesn't really fall under EL 13. And I was sort of quickly trying to go through the financial ELs to see if something was there, but I didn't see anything.
I don't disagree with you, and that's why you saw me frame it in the way that I did. That I led with the bullets that I thought were applicable to the decision we just made, but yet that's not the focus about what I want to talk about. So I agree with you 100%. So I am open to there being a different one, but somehow we actually, I think, need to have a formal conversation because it talks about construction projects and facility safety. That's why, for me, at least those parts do matter, I think, to all of us, and it could fit in under that. That's why I chose that one, but I'm not married to that idea unless my motion is to emergency monitor EL 13.
Yeah, because I think it would be interesting to talk about how we prioritize projects, what projects are left. And to also get at, because I think the financial piece, where does that fall? If it doesn't fall under capital, I don't have that answer, and I've had internet problems all night, so I can't be.
Well, maybe,
Working through
maybe it
that.
does fall under number 1. No, it probably does.
But does it really take an emergency monitoring of that to have, and maybe, I don't know if either, on the agenda or a work study to go through that list of projects? And what is the information we want? And sit down and have that detailed discussion over an extended time.
I think that the point of why we have ends and ELs is it memorializes conversation and it provides the superintendent direction. And I think we've had enough elevation of construction concerns, not in the budget of construction funding and all those things, not just IHS Stadium, that I think we do need to show transparently in the community that we're talking about this and we need to get somewhere. And I think it was unfair for our superintendent in October to be expected, who just walked in, to expected to have a handle on it and be able to, I suspect that the degree by which she would be able to respond to our questions in June would be very different than what they were in October. And I think that her understanding of the complexities and knowledge and history, I think allow for a rich opportunity. And I think that we will need to, again, still have that conversation next October, because these are really big deals that one of our jobs is to make sure that the money that we're asking voters for is spent like it's asked for.
Right.
Well, and I think, because my question that I was going to be is when does this normally get monitored? But if we are talking about capital facilities, what's still left, what's on the hopper to be done, I think I do want to have that conversation before the summer where most of that work will be done. So waiting till October feels like we're waiting too long to figure out where we're at with things because part of our monitoring, especially doing an emergency monitoring, is we need to know now what's going on, because it may inform us to possibly take action. So if we do an emergency monitoring to find out what we know now, I would want to be able to do that in a time frame that if we were to take some type of action, whatever that might be, or maybe it's none, but if we were, that it would be at the beginning, towards the early part of summer, so that those actions could actually be initiated in the short term
Right,
while
but-
we have good weather.
But if we're emergency monitoring something that doesn't already have the information you want in it, how is it going to get put into that monitoring, right? Versus having an agenda item that lets us delve deep into that as a topic. I'd have to bring up EL 13. So again, it depends on what you are looking for as far as the evidence or data that you would have in that monitoring. Are you still going to get what you want?
I think that I will, because I am hopeful that our superintendent and her team will ask us exactly what questions we're asking for and what data we need in order to be able to have a robust discussion and more long-term. And this is what I worry about, is as we lose a lot of institutional knowledge of our bond and levy campaigns, because you two have most faithfully attended all of those, that it's really important for us to sort of lay the groundwork about how we just better create systems, processes, transparently monitoring this. Because I know the attempt was through the budget monthly reports to do that, and it's still, I think, not sufficient.
Right. There was the budget changes to the budget status report, and then there was to be the capital project one-sheeters. And so one place to start is, where are they with the one-sheeters? Because that would bring us back to what projects are still out there and where are they? And so that's certainly something that we could use an update on, is that part.
But that was only for the bond projects, and what we just still don't have visibility over the levy projects, which are still substantial sums of money. Anyway, I'm fine if my motion gets shot down, but I made a motion.
Well, I don't disagree with what you want to look at. I just don't know that doing an emergency monitoring scratches the itch. I think we would be better off just laying out, this is the information we're interested in looking at, and putting it on an agenda. And I think it would probably be less work for the administration to simply address those specific questions than to go through a whole monitoring report, which doesn't explicitly address some of the issues that you've raised.
Well, I think I definitely would want it to be during the actual board meeting and not in a work
No,
session.
that's fine. Yeah, no, I would make it an agenda item. I just don't know that it needs to be a monitoring. Or maybe go about it that way, say, we want to have an agenda item that goes through these X things. And if we do that and it doesn't scratch the itch, then proceed with the emergency monitoring. I don't know.
I think practically the biggest difference is in order to do the emergency monitoring, we need to formalize action. So we would ask for a motion. Or I think to add an agenda item, you would instruct your president to add an agenda item on which topics, but I don't believe that will need the formal motion. So we can do either. We just pick the path, looking at upcoming agendas.
I don't know. I mean, I think it would be simpler to just add that to the agenda. But for the will of the board.
It won't be captured in a readily searchable way versus if it was when you go through. And so I rely on going and looking back, even whether I'm even doing a superintendent evaluation and look and review through the monitoring reports. It is much harder to go through and it's much harder when I'm trying to search through individual agendas. And that's why for me, it will live in a place that's very easy to find versus if we do it on, I will not remember 2 years from now that we added it to a June 2023 agenda versus it will pop out for me and I will be able to search for it readily and say look at it is EL 13. Here's where we showed we did an emergency monitoring. I click on that link and there it is. And that's why for me, it matters. And I think it highlights to the community that this is really important because we're going to have more and lots of dialogue about with the community on the construction and capital needs that this district has. And I think we have to start that conversation now, and we have to start it by taking accountability and ownership. And I'm the first one to say, I'm sorry that I did not have the oversight or understanding to know that the capital project levy for IHS turf and field or turf and track that was in the 2018 levy wasn't done yet and it's 2023. That's on me. And so I need to have more of this visibility and understanding that I don't have that will be memorialized and easy for me to and easy for the community to find.
And I think in there, I think would be a good place in that emergency monitoring, again, because this will be monitoring of work that's been done this year, whereas the monitoring we did in October was of the previous. And we have done some work around what does that form look like? How will the board know? What are those communication methods so that we can have in there the expectation that will start immediately of how the board is informed of all capital projects that are in the hopper, how much were we were originally asking, how much in the way of change orders, how much in the cost. You can show the pretty sheet to the world. And I think the sooner we get that out there, waiting until October, then again, if we were wanted to do the immediate monitoring and probably right after that, subsequent to that, how a board update on that capital project of where we're at with those things. Because I do feel even in the past couple of meetings, we haven't gotten to all of that. I still don't know where are we at with all of the projects over the past 10 years, 11 years. Where are they all at? And I think that needs to be done in public. So I think you're right about, because I didn't really say anything about should it be a monitoring or just an agenda item. And I do agree with you that if it's in a monitoring, it is readily available for the public and for us to go back and find. Oh, second.
I think we can make the actual motion, Harlan.
He did actually. He did.
But he said,
He actually
said.
I made the motion. Yeah. So I started the conversation with what I wanted and then I said,
Oh, that's
then-
where I lost.
Okay.
I just heard what.
long ago,
you
I
wanted.
made the motion.
It's been hanging there. So I give a second.
Yeah, which you should have done before we had the whole conversation.
I know.
But that's fine.
But see, I didn't hear the motion. So
I didn't hear the motion.
I didn't hear the motion.
Let's call for public comment. So we have to ask, is there any public comment in the room? Is there any public comment on Zoom? Here's none. Thank you. I guess in the discussion portion, I do have a question. So I understand how we get to the emergency monitoring. What I don't know is the use of emergency. Does that require a time frame? I'm literally just looking at future agendas. So I'm trying to understand that. Is there some implied time frame in that ask when you call for an emergency monitoring?
I don't think it's specified in our policy, but I would say in the next meeting or two, probably the next meeting is too soon. Right, so I would say before the school year ends.
Yeah,
Okay, so
because
that's
it goes
June.
back
So
to
June 8th.
what it is you want differently than what's already in here, which again, I'm the one that is not as big on the emergency monitoring as moving it forward as probably a sequence of agenda items that delve deep into this, because I don't know that they could put it all together in the time for the next board meeting. It might be phased work that takes us more than one meeting to get the depth of the information that we want.
You're right, it might, but there are many monitoring reports that come forward that we're like, oh, we actually need this, and then it still comes back to us. So I think until we have that framework, have that conversation and dialogue, we won't get there.
We have 2 meetings in June,
Mhm.
and then this board won't all be back together again until the end of August, and we will not be all together again in September.
Right, that's why I think it's important that that's why I think we have to have that in June.
That's helpful. Thank you.
So
Well, it depends on how long it takes them to
Well,
put together.
Well,
June.
information.
I would
Okay.
think the first meeting in June, so that if it isn't sufficient, we don't have to approve a monitoring when it first comes to us. If we say, oh, we need this additional information, that would give the second meeting in June for this to get a full. Because again, any additional information, I'm gonna want to put back into that that limitation so I can find it again.
Do you want this power cord? No. Any additional discussion on this one before? Okay, all right, we have a motion. All those in favor?
I,
Aye.
No.
So that's 4 in favor, 1 against, so it passes. Okay, thank you. And if there is nothing else for us to discuss,